Alright everyone, welcome back to the channel. Today I have another, we'll say ill-prepared video. The time that I spent prepping for this consisted of doing some research last week and starting this PowerPoint sometime last Saturday. Now, this week has been absolutely trash for me. I don't know about you guys. And today I planned on, alright, I'm just going to finish prepping the video and then start recording. I've spent the last 4.5-ish hours dealing with a plumbing emergency, so you guys are going to take whatever I can give you. No, I'm just kidding. But anyway, please give me some leniency for this. But either way, also, hate on me in the comments is fine too. I don't really care. But either way, thank you all for stopping by today. Today we're going to be looking at some of the craziest James Bond theories that I've come across over my time researching it briefly last week. A lot of this was given to me through Google and through some YouTube searches. And I don't go too in depth in any of them, by the way. These are just jumping off points. If you're interested in looking into any of these, I'll be putting some links down below and the more interesting ones. Some of these are very well covered on the internet, and one of them is not really a theory. It's just kind of a fun take on the chronology of the films, but we'll get to that. Anyway, let's go ahead and get started with kind of the easiest one, the most common one, really. That is that James Bond is a code name. So the theory for this one is pretty much exactly what it says. Like 007, the name James Bond is kind of an alias that's passed down through agents at MI6. It's used to explain inconsistencies in the character's appearance, aka recasting, or like all the different actors that have taken on the role of Bond. Recasting was not the right term, but just the new cast and stuff like that. Similar to like M or Q, it's just a delegation. It's a popular theory. Like I said, this is one of those theories that there's going to be hundreds of videos on YouTube all about. So if you want to go look at that, I know Calvin Dyson breaks this down in one of his videos. And of course, I'm always going to recommend him. He's one of my favorites, one of the guys who's inspired me to make this channel. But I digress on that point. I feel like this one's kind of a slam dunk, and I feel no shame in moving on to some of the other ones we have here. Some of them, I will say, kind of compound or add on to this. They make this theory just a bit more complicated, but that's down the road. This next one I find quite interesting. I don't really know why, because I'm not a huge fan of... oh, I'm a little ahead of myself. Anyway, James Bond is a codename debunking this theory. Sorry, I got way ahead of myself. I'm so tired. Either way, debunking it, Skyfall, one of its major plot points is that his parents' surname is Bond, right? So it's his name. There are several points in the films where Bond will call back to things that happened in previous films, even if it was a different actor for Bond who experienced that thing. So that is something that they use. It's like a loose continuity, but anyway. The Eon Productions, the Broccolis, they haven't said anything about this being in any way remotely true. And pretty much all of the studios involved, they've indicated that it's just one continuity. But anyway, again, I digress. Up until Daniel kind of got his own thing, Daniel Craig. But all right, now that I've gotten this one out of the way, this is the only one that has 2 pages, which is why I was thrown for a loop. We move on to James Bond as a Time Lord. I don't know anything about Doctor Who, like I was trying to say. But I have seen some clips. I've seen a few like random episodes that one of my friends had on at one point, but I don't know enough to really harp on it. But pretty much this theory is based in the lore of Doctor Who, where a Time Lord is, again from my brief research, a member of a technologically advanced alien race from Gallifrey that has mastered time travel and can regenerate. The part of this that is important is the regeneration. It's pretty much just saying that whenever one Bond is close to death, he would regenerate and become the new Bond, the new actor, and would continue. And even though it's technically they're all Doctor Who or they're all James Bond, it's a different person living a different life, doing different things, but it's all connected. From what I could tell, no one actually looks at this as canon, right? It's just kind of a fun, amusing way to tie it all together, but Of course, there is no direct correlation between James Bond and Doctor Who, and of course, no official connection there from the studios or anything. But just, a fun thing to look at. Uh, Speaking of that, we move on to the one that I found to be the most annoying, to be completely honest. I combined them all into one, and that is that James Bond is a robot slash AI slash superhuman. In short, we talk about it, or other Bond YouTubers have talked about it at length. Is that Bond's hyper competency? Like there isn't a damn thing that he can't do or figure out quickly. And some people have referenced that maybe he was programmed to be that efficient at everything. Maybe because he is such an effective and cold-hearted killer, the reason he's able to sleep at night is because he's not human. He doesn't have those emotions, and he's able to just recharge, go to sleep, and then wake up and kill more people, and it not affect him. So that's pretty much what people say about this. I, you know, I, I think that strips away a lot of what makes James Bond interesting. But yeah, I really don't care for this one. And then of course the superhuman part, that he has some kind of superpowers or anything like that that makes him so able and capable and all that. But yeah, again, at most I'd say maybe just really lucky. Maybe that's his superpower. But I'm just not a fan of this one. I'm not a fan of a lot of these, to be completely honest. But I digress on that. We move on to the Spectre brainwashing theory. This is the one I'm least excited to talk about because I don't fully get it. This kind of takes the James Bond as a code name to the next level of insanity, and that is that it implies MI6 brainwashes 00 agents into believing that they are, or not 00 agents, they brainwash an agent into believing that they are in fact James Bond. By kind of implanting the memories, the events from previous films, and making him believe that he is James Bond. And then Spectre and Blofeld are used to further that manipulation. So they specifically look at the movie Spectre, and that where Blofeld was puppeteering every bad thing that's ever happened to Bond. Apparently, people believe that version of Blofeld really supports this theory, and that him being his brother. I do agree that Blofeld being Bond's brother is a ridiculous thing, but I digress. Oh my god, I'm so sorry. So unprofessional. But a lot of people, or maybe not a lot of people, people do say that this theory helps to address inconsistencies between the Bond performances and the events of the films, kind of similar to the Bond as a codename thing. I just find this is an overcomplication. I think it's hella confusing. I don't enjoy this as a theory at all, but I've seen it in enough places that I ought to bring it up. But you guys can look into all of these theories more, by the way. There's a bunch of Reddits, a bunch of subreddits. If you Google it, AI will give you kind of a description briefly of what these things are. And then, of course, with all of these, there are YouTube videos that talk about them in more detail. There we go. And from James Bond to, that's right, John Patrick Mason. Sorry, I forgot how to read for a second. In Michael Bay's The Rock, Sean Connery plays, I don't even know how to describe the character. Pretty much an older version of James Bond is the theory. He is, I feel like he's Bond, but more crude, in my opinion. But anyway, there's a lot to this character. There's a lot to this theory. And I haven't seen this movie in so long. I really probably shouldn't be talking about it because I'll say incorrect stuff. But I know that one of the bases for this theory is that Bond escapes from, or sorry, I'm already saying it myself. Mason, or John Patrick Mason, escapes from Alcatraz, I think in 1963. And with the way people assume the timeline works, people think that at the end of Doctor No, when he's on the boat and he refuses to let MI6 pick him up, or the Coast Guard pick him up or something, because he's on the boat with the lady, right? The theory is that, well, maybe someone picked him up thinking that he was an escaping henchman from Dr. No's facility. They bring him to Alcatraz, and then he escapes Alcatraz because the movie was made, Dr. No was made in 1962, which is the year John ends up in Alcatraz. So apparently, with the timeline working up that way, it would give Bond about 6 months to escape Alcatraz, which generally I think everyone would agree that Bond could do it in 6 months or less. So that is kind of the basis for it. I did find that part interesting. There is a lot of good points. The Screen Rant article that I'm going to be linking in the comments, not the comments, the description will. You can read the rest of that. I believe it's 9 bullet points. I read through all of them last week. Unfortunately, I'm blanking, but yeah, it's pretty cool stuff. It's pretty cool stuff. I really like that movie. I really need to go back and watch that. The Rock, anyway. But moving on, moving on. Let me move this. You don't want to see the cursor. And then we move on to some miscellaneous rumors. One is that Safin, whatever, from No Time to Die is a reimagined version of Doctor No. Uh, I think he inspired Safin. You know, I don't know if I'd say a reimagine. Even if it was a reimagined version of Doctor No, I don't think he's. I just feel like he was so wasted as a character. It's weird because in the context of Doctor No, I think he was a perfect Bond villain. Basic, vanilla, but interesting. Safin propelled the plot, but he was barely around. He barely mattered. So I don't have too much to say about that one, other than yeah, sure, I could see it. And then similar to the James Bond as a codename theory, there is a theory that Felix Leiter is also a codename, explaining the discrepancies in the actor there. That one's actually a bit more interesting because before we got Jeffrey Wright, I could be wrong, but I'm pretty sure every Bond outside of Lazenby had more than one Felix Leiter actor. Like Sean had more than one. I know both of Dalton's films had a different Leiter. I'm blanking on the rest. But anyway, there's a bunch of different lighters, even across like one Bond will have more than one lighter, is what I'm trying to say. Moving on. I don't necessarily agree with this one. I do think it has more bearing. But Felix Leiter is Bond's friend, you know? So I feel like it'd be weird for him to just be buddy with every Felix Leiter he's ever met. You know what I mean? But anyway, moving on from that one. Speaking of Felix, there's a theory that in Casino Royale, whenever Bond wins the game and Felix is supposed to take Le Chiffre, how does he not get to him in time? How does Le Chiffre? I mean, obviously they kind of gloss over it. I guess Le Chiffre escapes before Felix can grab him and the CIA can grab him. But what does really happen with that? I've read a few random hypotheticals, that there was a shootout, that the CIA lost, or that Felix just chose to give him up, whatnot. I don't really have too much say in that one, but that was something that I saw a couple of times. And then there's the one I really just don't feel like talking about. There is a great video on this one already on YouTube. I'll be linking it as well. And that is that Silva is Pierce Brosnan's 007. Silva from Skyfall, anyway. There's a lot to this one. I don't really have too much to say about it other than that it certainly is interesting, and it does support that if James Bond is a codename theory, this is another one that kind of falls under the umbrella of that, right? Where if Pierce Brosnan was a James Bond, not the James Bond, that, if he were to be captured and, M didn't try to save him, like Die Another Day, but maybe a universe where Bond doesn't escape easily. He tries to take a cyanide pill and, he ends up turning into, what we know as Silva. There's a few other rumors with that one, the theory that Silva is M's son. I was about to say daughter, or maybe adopted child or something. I've seen a bunch of weird different things about that, but people make a reference to the fact that Silva's good at hacking, which, Brosnan apparently does that a couple times. Anyway, there's a bunch to that. A bunch of videos talk about it as well. Moving on to the last point, and this is, again, not really a theory. It's the three. It's theory. It's called a theory, but it's a guy named Chris Beyer worked on a 3 timeline theory. that explores different timelines that each of the films could fit in. And like I said, it's just kind of a fun way to explore the chronology of Bond films. And I'll be leaving a link to the Medium.com article as well that goes over it. Not much to it other than it's well, I'm trying to think. I tried to pull it up earlier while I was doing this recording, but it pretty much crashed the computer. That and I tried pulling up the Screen Rant article, so I'm not going to push this computer to its limits. It's clearly had enough of me, but like I said, the links will be in the description. Oh yeah, that's what it was. So these timelines are distinguished by three different M's. One is M when she's, oh my God, I forgot. What a fake fan I am. All right, so Olivia Mansfield and Barbara Maudsley. It's Maudsley that I always forget. Anyway, sorry, that's embarrassing. But moving on. So one is the M where she's Barbara Maudsley. One where she is Olivia. I already screwed it up. Mansfield. I'm so embarrassed. And then one is Ralph Fiennes M from Spectre and No Time to Die. Gets its own timeline just because. Why not? But anyway, I'm not going to harp too much on this because I clearly don't know what I'm talking about. But I do remember reading the article and enjoying it. So I highly recommend you guys check it out. But I think that I've gone on long and long enough about this, considering I, really know nothing to talk about. This is the part of the video where I'm breaking off of the main topic, and I'm just gonna ramble for a bit because a lot has been going on. There's been a lot going on. We're prepping for a move, applying for jobs. Now I've started packing, and then of course we had the plumbing issues that I had to deal with today, which I fixed literally right before I came to sit down and record. I'm just exhausted. But I have been working on videos. I've been working on a lot of shorts, getting everything uploaded. I did the math. So before we move closer to family, where we're actually planning on settling, at least for the time being, we're taking a trip down there. First off, we have a concert with a buddy, a state over. So we're going to be flying down, traveling with them because it's on the border, and going back. But in that time, we're going to be gone for a couple weeks. I did the math. I have, I think, 30 something videos that I needed to have done before I left. So, you're going to be seeing a lot of videos of me wearing the same outfits while I crank out 4, 5, 6 shorts at a time and prepping for these videos. I started prepping all these videos at the same time. The other two are almost done as far as the prep goes. This one just unfortunately fell in between the cracks of, it's somewhere in between what I wanted the video to be and where it ended up being. So I do apologize, but at the end of the day, I think these are fun topics, but I do have topics I'm more interested in talking about coming up. So I hope you guys enjoyed this video. I hope you guys are, thankful, not upset that, this is the best I'm doing. But thank you all for the patience. I'm going to stop rambling because this is starting to get sad. Anyway, thank you all for stopping by. Please be sure to like, dislike, whatever you got to do. Leave a comment. Let me know what you guys think down below, and I'll catch you all in the next video. Later, everyone.